Ex-fiancée asked for an open marriage. I sent her packing. Hello, True Story. My name is Miller, and I've been watching your channel for a little while now. I never thought I'd be the type to send in one of my own stories, but after what happened to me and seeing so many men write in with their experiences, I felt like it was time to share mine. Maybe some guy out there who's ignoring red flags or downplaying his own gut feelings will hear this and realize he doesn't have to tolerate nonsense just to keep a relationship together. This one is a long one, and it still blows my mind how quickly everything unraveled. How we met. I met my ex-fiancée during graduate school. Let's call her Samantha. I was 26 at the time, and she was 24. I had just started my master's program, focused heavily on research and assistantship work. I was the guy who basically lived in the library, balancing my thesis research with working part-time to help cover my bills. She was in the same program, but on a different track, more into the communications and organizational leadership side of things. From the first time we spoke, I noticed she had this lively energy. She was extroverted, confident, and always seemed to be at the center of attention. I, on the other hand, was quieter, more reserved, but I knew how to listen, and I think that drew her to me. We started studying together in groups, grabbing coffee before classes, and eventually I asked her out. To my surprise, she said yes right away. That yes turned into consistent dates, dinners, late-night conversations about our career goals, and before long, we were officially a couple. I was crazy about her. She was attractive, ambitious, and had a way of making me feel like she was genuinely proud of being with me. She met my family within 6 months, and everyone loved her. My mom used to say, "Miller, she seems like a keeper. Don't let her go." And at that time, I believed exactly that. Graduate school life together. The next couple of years went by in a blur. We supported each other through the grind of classes, presentations, and internships. I was doing well academically, and she was thriving socially and professionally. She had a knack for networking and making connections, and she got internships in corporate communications firms that seemed to fast-track her career. We moved in together about a year and a half into dating. It wasn't without hesitation. I knew moving in too soon could be risky, but it felt like the right step. At first, living together was great. We decorated the place together, cooked meals side by side, and made plans for the future. I'll be honest, I thought I had hit the jackpot. The proposal. 2.5 years into our relationship, I proposed. I had saved up for a ring that cost me several months of assistantship stipends and part-time wages. It wasn't flashy by celebrity standards, but it was meaningful. I proposed during a weekend getaway, and she cried, said yes, and we celebrated with champagne. I truly thought I was building my life with the right woman. We spent the next year planning the wedding. Her parents were heavily involved, and while I noticed early on that they had strong opinions about money and appearances, I brushed it off as typical wedding drama. Looking back, those were some warning signs I ignored. The shift. About 6 months before the wedding, I started to notice Samantha's behavior change. She was staying later at work, going out more often with coworkers, and seemed more distracted when she was with me. When I asked her about it, she insisted it was just stress from wedding planning combined with her new responsibilities at the firm. I wanted to believe her, so I let it go. But then came the conversation that flipped my whole world upside down. The open marriage request. It was a random Thursday evening. I had just finished grading papers for one of my assistantship classes, and we were sitting in the living room. Out of nowhere, she asked, "Miller, what do you think about an open marriage?" At first, I thought she was joking. I laughed and said, "Yeah, that would be the fastest way to end one." But she didn't laugh. She looked me straight in the eye, dead serious, and started talking about how some couples thrive in open marriages, how it would take the pressure off and allow us to explore. Explore what? We weren't even married yet. I felt this wave of heat rush over me. My gut screamed that something was wrong. I asked her flat out, "Why are you asking me this? Is there someone else?" She swore up and down there wasn't. She tried to frame it as some kind of progressive idea she had been reading about. I cut her off and told her point blank, "No, I'm not interested. That's not the marriage I want." That's when she started begging, pleading, telling me she didn't mean it the way it came out, that she was just curious. She even cried, saying she didn't want me to be mad at her. But something wasn't adding up. The phone check. I looked her in the eyes and said, "If you're serious about there being no one else, hand me your phone right now." She froze. Then she tried to laugh it off. She said, "Oh, come on, Miller, don't be ridiculous." But I wasn't budging. I told her if she had nothing to hide, she'd hand it over. Reluctantly, she gave me the phone. She probably assumed I wouldn't find anything. I went through her messages. Most threads looked normal. Then I saw one labeled with just a single letter, B. My stomach sank. I opened it, and there it was. Months of messages between her and some guy from work. They weren't even subtle. Late night flirting, explicit conversations, "I can't wait to see you tomorrow" texts, and even messages where she complained about me to him. I scrolled and scrolled, and the evidence was undeniable. She had been cheating on me for months, emotionally and physically, with her coworker. The fallout. I looked up from her phone and I could see the color drain from her face. She knew she was caught. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just stood up, walked into the bedroom, and started pulling her things out of the closet. She followed me, crying, begging, saying it wasn't what it looked like, that she was just joking about the open marriage idea. I ignored her. I packed her clothes, shoes, makeup, everything into bags and carried them to the front yard. She stood there in shock, crying louder, begging me to stop. When I came back inside, I looked at the ring on her finger. Without hesitation, I grabbed her hand, pulled it off, and said, "We're done. The wedding is over." The look on her face, it was like her whole world collapsed, but I felt strangely calm. I opened the door, told her to take her things and that she had made her choice. I wasn't going to marry a cheater. Divorce? Technically, since we weren't married yet, it wasn't a divorce at first. It was just a broken engagement. But since we had signed some joint contracts while planning the wedding and she had moved into my condo, we still had to go through legal steps to separate finances and living arrangements. By the time it was over, it felt like a divorce. The hardest part wasn't the paperwork. It was realizing that the woman I had invested nearly 5 years of my life in was never truly committed to me in the way I was to her. Final thoughts for now. That night when I packed her bags and threw her out was one of the most defining moments of my life. I chose myself instead of tolerating disrespect. She tried calling me dozens of times afterward. She showed up at my door. She even begged my friends to talk to me on her behalf. And yes, there's a whole second chapter to this story. How she tried crawling back, and even how her father tried to sue me for wasting their family's money on the wedding that never happened. But I'll save that for a follow-up email if you want to hear it. For now, I'll leave it at this. Men, if you're listening, don't ignore your gut. If she suggests an open marriage months before your wedding, trust me, she's already got someone else lined up. Thanks for reading my story, True Story. I appreciate what you're doing, giving men a space to share their experiences. Hopefully, my story helps someone else recognize the signs before it's too late. Sincerely, Miller. Follow up. She tried crawling back and her father tried to sue me. Hello, True Story. It's Miller again. I sent you my story titled Ex-Fiancée Asked for an Open Marriage. I sent her packing. When I ended the last email, I mentioned there was more. how she tried crawling back into my life, and how her father even tried to sue me for wasting their family's money. Well, here's the continuation in detail, just as it unfolded. The day after, throwing her out. When I kicked Samantha out and put her stuff in the front yard, I thought that was the end. I thought she'd grab her belongings, call one of her friends or family members, and that would be it. But life never works out that clean. The very next morning, I woke up to my phone buzzing nonstop. 20 missed calls, dozens of texts. Half of them were long, emotional paragraphs about how she messed up, how she wasn't thinking straight, and how she couldn't imagine her life without me. She went from begging one minute to being angry the next. One text literally said, "You're overreacting, Miller. We were stressed from wedding planning. I made a mistake and you're throwing everything away. Do you even love me?" I remember sitting there staring at my phone, feeling this strange mixture of anger and relief. Anger because she was still trying to gaslight me into thinking I was the problem. Relief because my decision was made, and I had no desire to second guess myself. That morning I blocked her number. The drive-by apologies, but blocking her didn't stop her. 2 days later, I came home from work and found her sitting on the steps of my condo building. Her makeup was smudged, and she looked like she hadn't slept. "Miller, please," she said as soon as I got out of my car. "Just hear me out, please." I didn't respond. I walked straight to the door. She followed me, grabbing my arm. "I'm sorry. I don't even care about that guy. I ended it. Please, we can work through this." I turned to her and said calmly, "You didn't end anything. You got caught. That's the only reason you're here. Now leave." She started sobbing louder, right there in the parking lot. Neighbors peeked out of their windows. It was humiliating. For her, mostly, but for me too. I told her flatly, "If you don't leave, I'm calling the police." That did the trick. She scrambled into her car and sped off. Her friends got involved. A week later, I started hearing from mutual friends. People I hadn't spoken to in months were suddenly calling me. "Hey, man, I don't know what happened between you and Samantha, but she's devastated. Maybe you guys should talk." Or, "Come on, Miller, you've been together too long to throw it away like this. Can't you at least go to counseling?" It was clear she was running a campaign, trying to paint me as the cold-hearted fiancé who threw her out over a misunderstanding. What she wasn't telling them was that she had been sleeping with her coworker for months. I told anyone who asked, "She cheated, that's the end of it." Funny thing, about half the friends immediately stopped defending her after that. The other half still acted like cheating wasn't a deal breaker. Those weren't my friends to begin with. Her father enters the picture. About 3 weeks after the breakup, I got a certified letter in the mail. At first, I thought it was junk, but when I opened it, my jaw dropped. It was from Samantha's father's attorney. The letter claimed that because I had broken off the wedding, I was financially liable for damages incurred by Samantha's family in planning the ceremony. Venue deposits, catering contracts, dress fittings, the works. They were demanding reimbursement of nearly $18,000. $18,000. I laughed when I read it, not because it was funny, because it was absurd. I immediately called my own attorney, a guy I knew from my university network. He took one look at the letter and said, "Miller, don't lose sleep over this. They don't have a case." In my state, the law is very clear. Unless fraud is involved, breaking off an engagement is not grounds for suing the other party. Rings are considered conditional gifts. Since I broke off the engagement due to her infidelity, I was well within my rights to take the ring back. Still, her father pushed. He even called me directly one evening. "You humiliated my daughter, Miller," he said. "Do you have any idea what you've done to our family? People are talking. We've spent thousands on this wedding and you think you can just walk away?" I told him calmly, "Your daughter cheated on me. That's why the wedding is off. If you want to blame someone for wasting money, blame her." He went silent for a few seconds, then said, "You'll regret this," and hung up. That was the last time I spoke to him directly. the legal standoff. The lawsuit never went anywhere. My attorney filed a simple response, pointing out her infidelity and the state laws. Within 2 months, their attorney quietly dropped the case. But the damage was done. The experience showed me just how delusional her family was. Instead of holding her accountable, they tried to turn me into the villain for not marrying their cheating daughter. The social media campaign. Meanwhile, Samantha took to social media. She posted vague statuses like, "Some people just don't know how to forgive. Sad when love isn't enough." And, "When you give years of your life to someone and they throw it away over nothing." I didn't respond, but mutual friends kept sending me screenshots. Eventually, she escalated and wrote a long post about how I abandoned her after she had a moment of weakness. Here's the thing. The more she posted, the more people started asking questions. And once a couple of our mutual friends spilled the truth about her coworker, her sympathy campaign backfired. Running into her coworker. One night about 6 months later, I was out at a bar with some buddies when I saw him. The coworker. The guy from the B message thread. He was there with some friends, loud and drunk. And guess who walked in a few minutes later? Samantha. They weren't together anymore. I could tell by the way they avoided each other. He saw her, rolled his eyes, and walked away. She saw me, froze, and then quickly left. That told me everything I needed to know. Whatever relationship they had didn't last long once she was exposed. Rebuilding myself. After the dust settled, I focused on myself. I finished grad school, landed a solid job, and moved into a bigger place. I reconnected with old friends, traveled a bit, and rediscovered hobbies I'd abandoned during the relationship. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. No constant anxiety about where she was or who she was texting. No more games, just peace. The last attempt. About a year after the breakup, she showed up at my new place. I don't know how she got the address, probably through a mutual friend. She stood on my doorstep with tears in her eyes, holding a handwritten letter. "Miller, I just want to say I'm sorry. I ruined everything. You were the best man I ever had, and I didn't see it until it was too late. Please, just give me another chance." I looked at her for a long moment and said, "You're right. You did ruin everything, and it is too late." I closed the door. That was the last time I ever saw her. Final thoughts. Looking back, I realize how close I came to tying myself legally and financially to someone who didn't deserve me. If I had ignored the red flag of her asking for an open marriage, I'd probably be a divorced man right now instead of a free one. So to any guy hearing this, listen to your gut. Don't let guilt, pressure, or sunk costs trick you into staying with someone who disrespects you. Walking away is hard, but staying in a broken situation is much harder. Thanks for giving me the chance to share the follow-up true story. If even one man out there hears this and decides to value himself more, then my mess won't have been for nothing.